There is a 1984 Honda XR200 still being ridden as a daily trail bike right now. Same top end it left the factory with. The owner has never touched the valves. He just runs clean oil, replaces the air filter religiously, and keeps the jetting right. That bike is not on this list, because the 10 machines here are even tougher. Off-road is where reliability claims get tested for real. No smooth roads to hide worn bearings. No consistent RPM ranges to mask a tired top end. Dirt, heat, water crossings, hard landings, and sustained wide-open throttle separate engines that were genuinely built to last from ones that just look good on a spec sheet. These 10 pass that test, some of them for decades. Number 10, Yamaha TTR230, 2005 to 2022. Most people dismiss the TTR230 as a beginner bike and move on. The riders who've been on trails for 20 years buy one as a second bike and never stop riding it. The 223cc SOHC air-cooled 4-stroke produces a modest 16 horsepower, and that conservativeness is the entire point. Yamaha built this engine so far below its mechanical ceiling that wear becomes almost theoretical.
The automatic cam chain tensioner removes the most common maintenance error from the equation entirely. What kills TTR230 engines isn't mechanical failure, it's dirt ingestion from neglected air filters. The stock paper filter needs cleaning every 5 to 8 riding hours in dusty conditions, not every season. Number 9, Honda XR200 1996 to 2004. And this next one has a reputation that borders on mythology, which is justified, because the XR200 genuinely earned it over 9 years of continuous production and 0 fundamental engineering changes. The 397cc SOHC air-cooled 4-stroke uses a long-stroke layout, 85mm bore, 70mm stroke, that prioritizes low-end torque over peak horsepower. Long-stroke engines rev lower to produce equivalent torque. Lower revs mean lower piston speed. Lower piston speed means slower ring and cylinder wear. The XR200 redlines at 8,500 RPM, and most trail riding happens between 3,000 and 6,000. The engine spends its life loafing.
Number 8. Kawasaki KLX300R, 1997 to 2007. Now this one might surprise you, because Kawasaki's off-road presence in the 1990s was dominated by their 2-stroke KX motocross lineup, and the KLX300R flew completely under the radar. The 292cc liquid-cooled DOHC 4-stroke was overbuilt for its displacement class in a way that only becomes obvious when you compare failure rates. Liquid cooling keeps operating temperature consistent, regardless of ambient conditions. Critical for an engine that might spend a morning in cold mountain air and an afternoon on sun-baked hardpack. Consistent temperature means consistent thermal expansion and predictable piston-to-wall clearance across the engine's entire service life. The DOHC layout on a 292cc engine was unusual for the era.
Number 7, Suzuki DR350, 1990 to 1999. If you've been riding off-road for more than a decade, this one is definitely about you, because experienced riders keep returning to the DR350 as a benchmark that newer bikes haven't improved on for pure durability. The 349cc SOHC air-cooled single uses an 80mm bore with a 69.4mm stroke, a near-square layout that balances low-rev longevity with breathing efficiency. The result is an engine that pulls cleanly from 2,500 RPM, revs willingly to 8,000, and experiences balanced stress across its entire operating range. The one documented weak point, the oil strainer screen becomes restrictive past 3,000-kilometer oil changes in off-road use. Change oil every 2,500 kilometers off-road. Pull and clean the strainer screen every third oil change. DR350 engines with 60,000 plus kilometers on original cranks are not rare.
Number 6. Honda CRF 450X, 2005 to 2017. But the reason why the CRF 450X lasts so much longer than the CRF 450R it's based on is what most people get completely wrong. They're nearly the same engine. Same 449cc liquid-cooled DOHC architecture. Same bore and stroke, same basic bottom end.
but the 450X produces 47 horsepower against the 450R's 55. And Honda achieved that difference by retarding ignition timing, fitting a heavier flywheel, and recalibrating the fuel circuit for smoother power delivery. The result is an engine that never experiences the sharp combustion pressure spikes that hammer big-bore four-stroke components into early retirement. The 450X also came with a wider oil cooler than the 450R from the factory. Change oil every 15 riding hours, not calendar months, riding hours, and CRF 450X top ends routinely reach 1,500 to 2,000 riding hours before needing piston and wing replacement.
Number 5. Yamaha WR250F, 2001 to 2014.
And the next one costs off-road riders money constantly because they buy the YZ250F from motocross, then discover the WR250F and realize they bought the wrong bike for trail riding. The WR250F shares its 249cc liquid-cooled DOHC bottom end with the YZ250F, but Yamaha altered the exhaust cam timing 3 degrees for the wood spec WR. 3 degrees. That small change moves peak torque 800 RPM lower, meaning WR250F riders aren't forcing the engine to its power peak on every trail section. Lower average operating RPM, less heat, slower wear. Leave the GYTR throttle stop screw in for the first 10 to 15 riding hours of a new engine. That partial throttle restriction during break-in allows rings to seat gradually and evenly. Properly broken in WR250F engines consume no measurable oil between changes. Improperly broken in ones burn oil from 10,000 kilometers onward. The first 15 hours determine the next 15,000 kilometers.
Number 4. Honda XR650L, 1993 to present.
Now forget everything I just said for a second, because the XR650L has been in continuous production since 1993 without a fundamental engineering change. And that fact alone tells you something important. Honda doesn't keep building something for 30 plus years unless the market keeps buying it. And the market keeps buying the XR650L because it starts, runs, and doesn't break. The 644cc SOHC air-cooled single produces 40 horsepower from an engine so understressed that Honda's recommended valve check interval is 12,000 kilometers, the longest of any performance-oriented off-road single ever produced. The XR650L runs lean from the factory due to EPA compliance.
Number 3. Kawasaki KLR 650, KL 650, 1987 to 2018. This doesn't just last long. It has produced more documented extreme mileage examples than any other dual sport in history, and the reasons are hiding in plain sight. The 651cc DOHC liquid-cooled single is, by modern standards, a simple engine. Fewer components means fewer failure points. Every system is accessible, understandable, and fixable with basic tools in a remote location. The one known weak point, famous enough to have its own name in the KLR community, is the doohickey. The balancer chain tensioner can fail on pre-2008 models after 30,000, 40,000 kilometers, causing sudden, catastrophic engine damage. The fix is a $30 aftermarket steel tensioner from Eagle Mike, installed in 45 minutes. Post-2008 models received a revised tensioner from the factory. Do the doohickey fix and the KLR 650 becomes genuinely unstoppable. Documented examples at 200,000 kilometers exist on original bottom ends.
Number 2. Yamaha XT600/XT660R 1984 to 2016. If you've been riding dual sport for more than 5 years, this one is definitely about you. Because the XT lineage represents 30 plus years of continuous refinement applied to a single concept, a thumper that never quits. By the time Yamaha produced the 660cc liquid-cooled XT660R in 2004, the architecture had been refined through 20 years of real-world failure analysis. Every weak point the air-cooled XT600 revealed was addressed in the XT660R. The result is an engine that arrived pre-debugged, not by engineers in a lab, but by 2 decades of riders in the field. Liquid cooling eliminated the XT600's one durability concern: heat soak during low-speed technical riding in hot climates, valve clearance at 6,000 kilometer intervals,
Intakes at 0.1 to 0.15 millimeters, exhausts at 0.17 to 0.22 millimeters.
1. Honda XR200R or XR650R, 1985 to 2000, 2000 to 2008.
And here we are, the engine that defines what off-road durability actually means. Not as a marketing claim, but as a measurable engineering reality. The 591cc SOHC in the XR600R and its 649cc successor, the XR650R, share one design philosophy every experienced off-road mechanic understands instinctively. Every internal dimension is larger than it needs to be. Crankshaft journals oversized, rod bearings wider than the power output requires, cylinder walls thicker than thermal management demands. Honda built this engine as if the designer's primary fear was failure, then added more margin on top of that. The XR650R produces 60 horsepower from components that could sustain 80 without structural concern. Every ride is an underload event for this bottom end. Oil every 15 riding hours, air filter every 4 to 6 hours in dusty conditions, valve clearance every 6,000 kilometers after the initial break-in period.
Every engine on this list shares one characteristic. The engineers who designed them were more afraid of failure than they were impressed by peak power numbers. That restraint, the deliberate decision to build more engine than the output requires, is the entire explanation for why these machines are still running decades after their competitors are in the recycling bin. Clean oil, clean air, correct jetting. If this helped you find an off-road machine that will still be running when everything else is given up, you know what to do.